away. Hi everyone, wishing you a very, very, very warm welcome. Thank you so much for being here. It's so lovely to see so many lovely faces, lots of familiar faces and lots of new faces. Get you all. So we have a 90-minute session today. I've got lots of plans, lots of lovely things to get through. But I would love to start, as I'm just admitting people into the room or in the waiting room and coming in. Would you mind just letting me know where you are? Hi, Maggie. Where you are, and what was my question? What is your number one frustration, if you have one, with your pelvic floor or pelvic health? What's the stumbling block? What's the thing you want to improve? Or if you wanted to reframe that as a wish, this is how I wish my pelvic health would be, or how my pelvic floor was. So you could frame it as, this is my frustration, this is what's going on, this is what I want to change. Or you could frame it as, this is what I want it to look like, this is what I want it to feel like. So however, so where are you? And then you can answer that question. And as you are all doing that, I am going to introduce myself, because I know I do know a lot of you, but there are also going to be a lot of you that I do not know. I'm going to get the chat box up so I can see. So I am Rachel Hall, and I have been teaching for 21 years. I can't believe it's that long. That's half my life. I'm 42. I've been teaching half my life, which feels really wonderful, actually. It's such a blessing. I feel like my work is such a blessing, and it really feels like it is my true, they call it your dharma, don't they? When it's like, I feel like it is what I was put on the earth to do. I adore my work. I was a ballet dancer years ago. I trained from a very young age, and I was a professional ballet dancer. And as a ballet dancer, typically you would have a very tight pelvic floor. I mean, everything is quite tight, as you can imagine. And very typically, ballet dancers can have issues with labour because body doesn't open up. I didn't actually. Both of my labours were great, but I'm going to go into a little bit in a moment why I have such a passion for the pelvic floor. And it's because I suffered with a prolapse, but I'll talk about that in a moment. I started teaching Pilates 21 years ago. And when I was teaching Pilates initially, I think it's still taught like this, actually. I haven't taught like this for many years, but breathe in, breathe out, lift your pelvic floor, pull your tummy in, and then move. So it was always pre-engaging everything and then moving, which is not great because you are going to move rigidly. It's training the body out of function, actually. You don't need to be tight to move. You are inherently stable. And if you can move with good biomechanics, and if you can stimulate your proprioceptors, improve the intelligence in your body will fire up adequately. I met the Franklin method, I don't know how many years ago now, but that was a really revolutionary moment in my life, in my own body, and how I felt in my body, how I moved, definitely how I taught. And it really helped me to see the body so much more clearly. The Franklin method it's incredible, and it's a huge backbone and influence in my work. A lot of it is about embodied biomechanics. So it's one thing knowing the biomechanics, but it's actually, can I embody it? Can I move like it? I know I look a bit distracted. I'm letting people in the waiting room. I should have had one of my team members come and join me to do this. I'm also a biomechanics trainer, and I use some of the biomechanics exercises to release spasm in the pelvic floor and in the piriformis. We might get onto some of it today. I did a doula training with Michelle O'Dont, which I don't talk about a lot, but that was an incredible training. And it was all about the physiology of birth, how we are designed to give birth naturally. Our bodies open up in a certain way, and our hormones not fire up, what's the right word? it's like a concoction of hormones. If we're in the right environment and the baby is in the right position and everything is as it should be, there is an incredible design that happens quite naturally through us. I have also done a low pressure fitness training, which is otherwise known as hypopressives. We're not going to be doing that today. But I'm going to talk about my 4-week pelvic floor course a little bit later on, and we do the hypopressives work within the 4-week pelvic floor course. The hypopressives work, initially I was not too sure about it because it felt very rigid and it's quite a bizarre breath hold that you do. But in my own body, I felt a real lift with my pelvic organs. I had a prolapse. I'll talk about that in a moment, and I feel like it's really helped my prolapse. So that's why I've included it in the course. And finally, another training that I've done, it was a 2-year training in America and in Hawaii, called Universal Health Principles with my dear late friend, Laura Hayes Franklin. And really, the main influence of that was that your body has memory and your body keeps score. And your body is wildly intelligent and it is always communicating with you and has messages for you. So I feel like my approach to pelvic health comes from personal experience of having a prolapse, having had 2 children. After the birth of my second child, I just realised something wasn't quite right. It didn't feel right. When I looked down there with a mirror, I was like, it doesn't look right. Felt so embarrassed to go to the doctors. And when I finally plucked up courage to go to the doctors, I was told quite abruptly, yeah, you have a prolapse, just do your pelvic floor exercises. You might have to have surgery. And if you do, there will probably be more problems. And that was it. And I just left the surgery. I bumped into someone I barely knew, burst into tears and told her that I had a prolapse, like you do. I wear my heart on my sleeve. Told her that I had a prolapse, burst into tears. And went home and I felt horrendous. I felt really alone. I felt really embarrassed. I felt really ashamed and just stuck. I didn't really know what to do. Even though I've just told you all the training that I've done, even then, when it happened to me, I just thought, oh my goodness, this is just horrendous. Anyway, picked myself up and I went to see a mummy MOT physio in London, Maria Elliott, and she was brilliant. So if anybody is interested in seeing a mummy MOT or a pelvic health physio to really get a diagnosis, I think that is a great course of action, because the helpful thing was I knew exactly what was going on then, and then I could formulate a plan. So that is what I did. I thought, well, I've got all this knowledge. I've been teaching this for years. Let's put together a plan. And that's what I did. And I think I still have the rectocele. I don't think so. The rectocele prolapse is where the back wall of the vagina has been damaged and your rectum can start to protrude into the back of the vaginal wall. The same thing can happen with a cystocele or anterior wall prolapse, where the bladder drops down into the vaginal wall. Or you could have the uterus prolapse, where the uterus drops down into the vaginal opening. I think the damage is probably done, but I have no symptoms if I take care of my pelvic health. So if I make sure that I don't get constipated, that's a really, really key one. If I'm moving daily, and if I continue with all of my pelvic floor exercises, you wouldn't know. You can't see anything, I can't feel anything, everything is absolutely fine. So that's why I want to share it with you. I want to share all of this work with you because it has been really transformative for me. And I realise how helpless and frustrating and miserable and devastating it can feel when you don't know what to do and you don't know how to exercise safely. Today we have, I'm going to look at these messages in a moment, but we have people from everywhere, and there's lots of people that I don't know, and I hope that I will get to know you over time. So it needs to be a very safe class today. It's going to be very low level, low pressure. I know a few of you have had hysterectomies, you have prolapse, you have incontinence. So I want to keep all of that in mind and just make sure it's a very gentle, low level, safe way to exercise for you. Is there anything else I want to say about that? Let me know if you have any questions before we get started. No, that's all of that. Yeah, okay. So I think we'll get started. The things that you are going to need for today's session are a mat. You will need, if you have Franklin method balls, you can use them. I realise that most of you may not have them. You could grab a towel or a blanket instead. And if you have a TheraBand, you could use that as well, or an ankle weight or TheraBand. It's not necessary, but only if you want to. I'm just going to make sure my emails are switched off. Okay. So in the past, I've been running my pelvic floor program, the Ultimate Pelvic Floor Plan, for over 3 years now. And I've had hundreds and hundreds of people that have gone through it, and many people, some of you are here, which is so lovely to see you again. And in the past, I've run it as a 4 to 6 week course, and we've done a couple of sessions live every week. And it's been very Franklin method based, very much imagery of the pelvic floor, so you can very clearly see everything. Because I feel like when you have this clarity, when you can see, oh gosh, yeah, that's my bladder, that's my uterus, that's my rectum. Oh, okay, there's ligaments there, or that's where the bones are. As soon as you can start to see it, it really demystifies it. Rather than just thinking, I've got something going on with my pelvis, it just feels horrendous, I don't know what it is and I don't know what to do. When you can start to see it, you can build a picture of what's going on. Your body can talk to you more clearly. And I just feel like it's so much more empowering. So in the past, we had this live course, and then we would keep the recordings up for 10 weeks and then they would come down. What I have now done is I've recorded a 4-week program, and that's going to be 20 videos, and they are short videos. So they're between 12 minutes and 30 minutes. And the plan is that you do 5 classes a week for 4 weeks. So that is my dream. If you were to sign up for the Ultimate Pelvic Floor Plan, you commit to it and you just say, yeah, I'm going to prioritize my pelvic health. 5 classes a week for 4 weeks. And each class is different. We look at the urethral sphincter and the rectal sphincter and all of the different layers of the pelvic floor, the diaphragm, the glutes, the inner thighs, your posture. So we look at everything and we come at it with this full body approach. And then after the course, you have 3 maintenance videos that you can just keep doing weekly or monthly. And we also have sequences for bladder control. So if that is your issue, you will continue to do those 5 classes, or prolapse support. You will continue to do those classes. So it's really comprehensive, and I'm really pleased with it. And I've just finished it, and I can't wait to share it all with you later. But this is a little bit of a taster of that. So we're not going to dive too deep into all of the anatomy today. You'll get some anatomy on the course. But what I want to give you today is an experiential class where you'll be moving your pelvis and be thinking of activating various parts of your pelvic floor as you move. You know your body better than I do. If something doesn't feel right, then stop. Or come and ask me a question. I think that's everything. Okay, come and have a lie down on your back. I feel like I'm talking very fast. I'm at double speed, trying to fit it all in. Yes, it's being recorded, and this will be available. So I'm going to pop this onto my Aligned site, so Aligned members can use it, and also it will be open for everyone to use. So just come and have a lie down. So I live in Dorset, prioritising self-care for pelvic health through the menopause. Oh, Marianne, hi. I want my pelvic floor to be stronger. I like to run, but worry if this is putting pressure on my pelvic floor. Not being able to run and jump and rushing to the toilet are the biggest frustrations. You want to tighten up and improve tone. Oh, and we have a tight pelvic floor here as well. I'm rushing to the loo, wanting to learn more now for when my pelvic floor heads south. Okay, wonderful. So you're all lying down on your back with your knees bent. Bring your hands onto your pelvis, or at least onto your lower tummy. You could either make a bit of a diamond or a triangle shape with your hands, thumbs together, fingers together, and just bring your hands onto your pelvis. Close your eyes. And for the first few moments of our class, we are going to be very productive and do nothing. Doing nothing is underrated. It's very productive. And the intention of us doing nothing is to rest, to come into our parasympathetic nervous system, to release any tension that we might be holding, and maybe that's physical tension. Maybe you notice that you're frowning, or that you're gripping your teeth, or your jaw is tight, or your neck is tight. So just give yourself a moment and run through a little bit of a body scan and see if you can release any physical tension that you might be holding. Within the Franklin method, we use a lot of imagery because it really clearly communicates with the nervous system. So perhaps there is an image or a thought or a word or a colour that would help you to release this tension. I've really been using the kinetic imagery of gravity lately. You are supported by the mat and you're acknowledging gravity, you're letting go into gravity. So releasing any unnecessary physical tension and potentially any emotional tension. Breathe in, breathe out, and imagine that you could just let go. Or even energetic tension, anything you don't want to hold on to anymore, let it go. And here you are. You have prioritized yourself. You've put it in the diary and you're here. I'm going to play a short piece of music to support us in relaxing and releasing. And I want to invite you to just acknowledge where you are right now. And that could be in the room that you're in. That could be the stage of life that you're in. That could be the moment that you're in. So acknowledge where you are right now. And acknowledge how you feel. And that might not just be one blanket colour. I'm blue, I feel good, I feel bad. It could be, you could be feeling many things. And acknowledge the journey of your body, the journey of your body through your life so far, to this moment. And especially the journey of your pelvis thus far. This track I want to share with you is only 1.5 minutes, and it's called Being Here by Mammal Heads. So just listen and be here with you. And my wish for you is that you can discover, uncover, and embody your true core confidence in every sense, in sense of body, pelvic floor, so that you can do all of the things that you want to do. You can run, you can walk, you can hike, all of the things. You don't have to rush to the loo. And also, almost a little bit of a reframe, that we can see any pelvic floor issues that we have as actually an opportunity to get to know your body on a more intimate, deeper level, to get to know you, to really truly understand you, what your pelvis looks like, what your pelvic floor looks and feels like. And to maybe start to up your self-care, to put yourself higher on the priority list. I'm always up for reframing things. But I don't think it needs to be necessarily a reframe. This is an opportunity. We can't be the last thing on the list of priorities. It's just not going to work. Okay, so we're going to start to move. If you are lying with your legs straight, just bend your knees and bring your feet so they are flat on the floor, and allow your arms to rest down by your sides. You're very welcome to keep your eyes closed if you want to. Feet are about hip width apart, and slowly start to rock your pelvis towards you and then very gently away from you. I'm going to jump down and demonstrate too, but just gently roll the pelvis towards you and gently roll your pelvis away from you. So a moment just to say, hello pelvis, how are you feeling? Hello lower back. What's going on? And truly, what's going on? So just start to notice, how does your lower back feel as you do this? How do your SI joints feel, the joints at the back of the pelvis? How does your sacrum and coccyx feel? How does your pelvic floor feel? How do your pelvic organs feel? And you might not have an answer, but I just want you to be open. Just be open to listening to your body. We're going to do 4 more of these. So pelvis rocking back and forth. So first of all, just sensing your bones, your pelvic bones rocking forward and rocking back and rocking forward and rocking back. We're on our last couple. And then we just shall settle in the center. Next, we just tilt from side to side. Can you see this movement? So we drop one hip bone down and lift the other one up, and your knees are going to move a little bit. So one buttock lifts off the floor and the other one drops down. A little rock, side to side to side. Observing, how does this feel? Because what you will start to gather if and when you work with me more and more is that your body is wildly intelligent, like we said, and it has all of these clues for you. So you might notice, gosh, as I lift my left hip bone, that's way tighter than when I lift my right. Or it feels heavier or stiffer on one side. And these are all important clues. Establishing optimal pelvic health is not just about doing your Kegel exercises, your sphincters. There's too many other things at play. Your hormones, your digestive system, how you've slept, your stress levels, how you breathe, what your lower back is like, etc., etc. We'll do 4 more to each side. Anyone else notice that it starts to loosen a little bit? It's like the joints become a little bit more limber and the muscles become a bit more pliable. Now we're going to move this into a circle, a pelvic circle. So you're going to circle your pelvis all the way around.
otherwise known as a pelvic clock, you could imagine that your belly button is number 12, or it's 12 o'clock. Pubic bone is 6 o'clock, and the two hip bones are 3 and 9 o'clock. And you are rolling a marble all the way around the clock face. And you're touching every single number. Now, you do not need to be gripping your pelvic floor at all. You don't need to be doing a sphincter kegel contraction. We're just mobilizing bones. And if you move your bones, you have to be moving your muscles. You have to be exercising your muscles. Let's do 4 more in this direction. Otherwise, what else is moving your bones? So don't worry about pre-contracting or creating too much tension, because that can cause even more problems. Just think of the bones moving. We'll go in reverse. Let's reverse the circle. If you were to pre-contract any muscles, it overrides your body's natural intelligence, and it interferes with the communication from brain to muscle. You don't need to pre-contract. We'll do 4 more in this direction. Beautiful. And then when you finish the last one, just hug your knees into your chest. And with one hand on top of each knee, we'll move into hip stirs. So you're circling your legs, but you can imagine your sitting bones, the bones that you sit on, getting nice and wide as you open the legs out to the side. It can be counterintuitive to stretch the pelvic floor. But sometimes our pelvic floor is too tight, or at least part of it is too tight. Maybe there's scar tissue, or maybe we've trained it to hold too much. Let's reverse. And if a muscle is already busy with tension, it can't function properly. And sometimes there can be too much tension. Imagine if you were rehabbing your lower back. You would want to focus on mobility of the lower back as well as strength, as well as loading it. Same thing with the pelvic floor. Wonderful. Okay, let's lower our feet back down to the floor. Now, we're going to do the same exercise that we started with, just these pelvic tilts. But this time, I want you to initiate the movement with a sphincter contraction. So I know I've just told you that you don't need to pre-contract, but we are going to kind of with this one. Not grip, but just have a sense of your sphincters. So the muscles, circular muscles around your anal opening, that is going to contract. You can almost imagine that pulling on the coccyx and then letting go. So contract the anal sphincter and then release the anal sphincter. Contract the anal sphincter and release. And we're going to keep going just with that. Little pelvic tilt. Is there any imagery that would help with this? Maybe you could imagine your anal opening like a camera shutter, closing, opening, closing, opening, or a rosebud closing, opening. Maybe there's something else that resonates more for you. So contracting the anal sphincter is the feeling of trying desperately not to pass wind. I'm sure we're all kind of familiar with that feeling. Now we have another set of sphincters around the vagina or the base of the penis. And I want you to see if you can think of contracting those. So maybe it's another camera shutter. So as well as anal sphincter, imagine the vaginal opening, or imagine the head of the penis, and think of contracting that sphincter, closing the opening, and then opening it. Closing it as you tuck, opening it as you release. Closing it as you tuck, opening it as you release. This takes practice. So some of you have done this with me before. Some of you, this is new. Be patient with yourself. It's like learning a new language, pelvic floor language. And then finally, This might be a bit more subtle, but can you think of contracting your urethral sphincter? So that's the feeling of trying not to urinate. You might just want to turn your head and have a little look at the bladder. So there's a sphincter right at the neck of the bladder, and then further down towards the opening, there's another sphincter. And this is the one we can control with our autonomic nervous system. So there's two sphincters. I want you to imagine that you're going to contract your urethral sphincter and then release it. It's a small sphincter, but of course it's a mighty sphincter. And you're going to think of all three. So as you tilt the pelvis towards you, anal, and then you can think vaginal sphincter, and then urethral sphincter, and release. Be patient with yourself. You are learning a new language. And be interested. Is it impossible to contract one of them? Is it really easy to contract another one? This is all information for you to take on board. We're going to continue with this all the way up into a bridge. So you're going to tilt the pelvis towards you. If it feels suitable for your body, comfortable, etc., roll all the way up and then slowly ripple all the way down. So many of you will be familiar with this exercise. So you tilt the pelvis towards you, but we're going to think of the sphincters contracting as we lift up. Ripple all the way down, let the sphincters relax. The sphincters contract as we roll up. Ripple all the way down, the sphincters release. It's a good word, isn't it, sphincter? Roll all the way up, thinking of those three sphincters contracting. Ripple all the way down and release, 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 release. Really release. That's so important, that lovely release. Could you do another 5 for me? And then stay up at the top of the 5th one. I'm going to come and have a little look at you all. These look wonderful. So it's a lovely exercise for sphincter control. And your sphincters are really important for continence. And they do play a part with prolapse support as part of that, under that lift from below. Stay up on the very last one. What you will also feel is your buttocks working and your hamstrings working. And these muscles are also really key in providing support for your pelvic floor and the organs. So stay up on the last one. Now you're going to pulse your bottom up for 10. Let's just do 10. And feel the glutes, your buttocks waking up, feel your hamstrings waking up. But you could also do a little anal, vaginal, and urethral sphincter contraction at the top of each one. Do your 10. Well done, that's lovely. And then ripple all the way down. We are going to repeat, and this time 20 little pulses at the top. I know this can be quite strong on the hamstrings. So roll all the way up to the top, press evenly into your feet, press into your hands, and imagine these 3 sphincters at the base of your pelvis, all contracting. I'm just going to hold this image up if you can turn your head. Can you see those 3 openings? If you have a penis, then you just, well, you do have 3 openings actually, but obviously this one's wider, you know, if it's a vagina. But 3 main sphincters contracting, contracting. Oh no, you don't. What am I talking about? If you have a penis, you do not have 3 openings. You don't, of course you don't. You just have 2. Ripple all the way down, and then we shall do one last set. If you need a break, just hug your knees into your chest. Ripple all the way up, and we have 30 pulses for the last one. If you've had enough, hug your knees into your chest. Listen to your body. It will be so pleased that you are. So all the way up. If you have a penis, you still have the 3 sphincters. So imagine all 3 sphincters contracting, contracting, contracting. Little pulses at the top. And there'll be this dialogue, this connection and teamwork between hamstrings and glutes and the sphincters and the rest of the pelvic floor. Your pelvic floor is not an island.
If you need to strengthen your back, you need to strengthen your glutes and your hamstrings and your diaphragm and your neck and shoulders and your abs. The same with your pelvic floor. It needs a full body approach. Wonderful. It looks so lovely. When you've done your 30, hug the knees in and just lengthen your legs up towards the ceiling. They may or may not fully straighten. It doesn't matter, but I just want you to rub the backs of your thighs. So you're going to rub your hamstrings. You can rub the backs of your legs. You can rub the inner thighs a little bit, the hamstrings in the middle, the outer thighs. Your hamstrings talk to your pelvic floor. They communicate with your pelvic floor. Wonderful. Another couple of moments. And then lower your feet down. Take your feet to about the width of your mat and stretch your arms out to the side. You're going to have palms facing up to the ceiling. So your feet are about the width of your mat, palms facing up to the ceiling, and gently roll your knees and your hips from side to side. So your knees can rotate one way, the head twists the other way. Come back through the middle and swap sides. Knees twist one way, head turns the other way. Well done. Keep going. Knees twist one way, head twists the other way. So we're not just focusing on just the contraction of the muscles or even just the release of the muscles, but a balance of your mechanics, a balance of how the bones and the joints move. So be curious, is this tighter on one side compared to the other side? And that will influence your pelvic floor. Your pelvic floor, like all of the muscles in the body, you can be dominant on one side, weaker on one side. And gathering all of your clues. This looks lovely. One leg turns in, the other leg turns out. Could we do just 2 more to each side? And then make your way all the way up onto your knees. If anybody needs to let me know anything about their knees, will you type it in the chat box? I'm going to presume that you're all okay kneeling. If you're not, let me know and I can give you an alternative. So we're coming onto our hands and knees. And we're going to do a few more exercises that are likely familiar, but with the pelvic floor focus. So we spread our fingers wide and we have hands under shoulders, knees under hips. Imagine your sitting bones being wide. The base of your pelvis is wide. Just stay there for a couple of breaths and turn your head so you're looking at the camera. So this is what is happening. This is what exists between your sitting bones. If you widen your sitting bones, these pelvic floor muscles will lengthen. Now, if you come into the cat, I can't move this, these joints, unfortunately, but if you tuck your pelvis underneath you, all of these joints come together. Your pelvic floor will be contracting as you tuck your bottom underneath you, and then it will be releasing as you extend. So you can imagine that, almost initiate, think of almost drawing the sit bones in together with your pelvic floor, and then slowly release. Jane, have a problem with your left knee. Are you okay to do anything kneeling? I really do not want to aggravate your knee. If you're okay to do a little bit, you could do a little bit. If you are not okay to do anything on your knees, you could grab a stool or a chair and do a similar sequence on the chair. Or you can come back to your pelvic tilts lying down. Yeah, lovely. So you're allowing your pelvic floor to stretch and then to contract. That looks so nice. Yeah, beautiful, Yvette. We'll go for 3 more. I'm okay as long as knee not fully bent. Okay, in a moment we are coming back into a rest position, so you won't do that one. But please don't overdo it, Jane. Okay, you're on the last one. Now, from here, imagine that you have a paintbrush on your tailbone and you're going to draw a beautiful big circle with the paintbrush. Is it a watercolour circle? Is it acrylic paint? What are you drawing? What colour is it? And can it be really big?
you have many pelvic floor muscles that attach onto your sacrum and tailbone. So the more you can move these bones, the more you're going to be exercising these muscles. So some of them are going to be lengthening, some of them are going to be shortening. So we shall do about 10 circles in each direction. I'm going to show you again. You can imagine that you're drawing a lovely big circle behind you. If there's a wall behind you, on the wall behind you with your tailbone. Yeah, wonderful. And let's say we'll do about 10 one way and then 10 in reverse. And keep breathing. We've been on our hands for quite a long time. If anybody needs to come up onto their fists, they can. I know this can sometimes be a bit uncomfortable for wrists. There's always hundreds of variations, so you don't need to suffer in silence. Now, when you have completed those, bring your legs together, tuck your toes underneath you. Now, anyone with a pelvic organ prolapse, could you just pause for 1 second? I'm going to come back to you. So if you don't have a pelvic organ prolapse, you're going to press into your hands and feet and just lift your knees the smallest amount off the floor and then lower all the way down. That's the exercise. It's tiny. Your knees hardly lift. They don't come all the way up. They just come up a little bit and then they lower. Could you do 8 of those? Now, if you have a pelvic organ prolapse, you just need to be mindful of not pushing down into the pelvis too much. You don't want too much downward pressure. So I'm going to invite you to lift the knees, or at least perhaps don't even lift them, but as if you were just about to lift them and then you rest. Does that make sense? So you don't lift them off the floor, but almost as if you were just about to leave the floor, but then you decide against it. So you press into the hands, you almost leave the floor, but you decide against it. So we are building strength in this cylinder, which is your core. But I want you to be mindful of not pushing down too much into the base of the pelvis. Eventually, you can do things like press-ups and squat, things that do put pressure down into the base of the pelvis, because our everyday life does, so we need to be in training for it. But if you have any prolapse symptoms currently, we just need to be a bit mindful. So let's say we'll do about 8 of these, and then you can untuck your toes, drop your bottom back, and reach your arms forwards. You may want to open your knees to hip width apart. So, Jane, don't do this. Jane, come onto your back and hug your knees into your chest once again. Now rock your pelvis from side to side. Let your pelvic floor relax. A strong, functional pelvic floor is also a relaxed pelvic floor. It's a pelvic floor with good blood flow and with good communication to your brain. So sense these muscles that live in between your sit bones, up to your pubic bone, back to your coccyx. Sense the base of your pelvis. And sense that you're becoming more and more familiar with this part of your body. Now from here, open up your feet so your legs are in parallel. You're going to bring your body weight forward onto your hands and then drop the hips down and lift your chin and your chest up and then rock all the way back. If you don't like the look of this, if your body doesn't want to do it, let me know, give you something else. Hips drop down, you lift your chin and your chest up, and then you rock all the way back. Now, if anybody really wants to work on releasing tension in your pelvic floor, this is what you are going to try. You send one leg out to the side and you have your little toe on the floor. And you'll do the same thing. You're going to rock the hips forward and then rock your hips back. You don't need to go all the way back. Maybe you can, you don't need to. And we'll do 4 on each side. And allow your pelvic floor to release, allow it to stretch.
that Lisa. So this will be a nice one for you, Lisa. Try 4 on one side, and then the same thing with the other side. So very likely that you can feel your inner thighs, your adductors stretching. And the connective tissue of your adductors continues into your pelvic floor, the connective tissue of the pelvic floor. A bit like a pair of tights. Imagine a pair of tights is stretching, or it's nice and supple. And stretching the material that runs up your thigh, stretching the material that runs up into the pelvic floor. 4 on each side, or otherwise just continuing with both knees on the floor. Hi, Diana. Beautiful. When they are complete, we are all going to come and sit on our bottom. If you are comfortable sitting cross-legged, that's what you'll do. If you're not, come and sit on a chair or a stool, if you'd rather, if your knees aren't comfortable here. And just rock from side to side. Some of you are doing that anyway. So we're going to have one hand on top of each knee and we're rocking from side to side. Hello, sitting bones. So gently rocking onto right sit bone, left sit bone, right sit bone, left sit bone. And this is what you have in between your sit bones. All of these layers of musculature. Look at it all. Amazing. And then inside, you have your pelvic organs. You've got your bladder, uterus, if you have a uterus, and then rectum. I've misplaced my rectum. Can't find it. Can't find it anywhere. I was looking for it before the class. I think one of the children has pinched my rectum. Okay, settle in the center and then turn this into a circle. So pubic bone, sit bone, coccyx, sit bone. Pubic bone, sit bone, coccyx, sit bone. And sensing, this is a diamond shape. Can you see that diamond shape at the base of the pelvis? Pubic bone, sit bone, coccyx and sit bone. I can't really feel my pubic bone too much sitting in this position, but if you're on a stool, you can probably feel it more. Let's reverse. So as we're moving like this, and with anything that involves this touch, it really helps to stimulate the proprioceptors in this area, in our pelvic floor, in and around the joints. And the proprioceptors communicate with your brain. They communicate how much tension there should be, and if there's too much. They communicate posture, position, posture. They communicate effort. So if a muscle is efforting too much or not efforting enough, not pulling its weight. And they communicate balance. Okay, let's settle into the center and then bring your feet to a bit wider than hip width apart and take your hands back behind you. We did a similar exercise lying down. This is similar. It might be a little bit different. You might feel a little bit more of a stretch into your hip. I can sometimes feel this pull in my knee. It's not ideal. If you feel it pull in your knee, just be a bit mindful. Don't push into it too much. But we're just gently mobilizing femurs within hip sockets, gently mobilizing your hip joints. You can play around. Maybe you want to try and take your legs a little bit wider. Maybe you're better off with your knees a little bit narrower. Just have a bit of a play. Yeah, beautiful. 3 more to each side. And then we'll bring our feet a little narrower and just place your right ankle bone on your left thigh bone. You can do this sitting if you prefer. If you are on a chair, you can do it sitting on a chair. If you want to go a bit stronger, bring your hands closer to your bottom and then lift your chest. It looks like this from the side. And then you may gently rock your legs from side to side if you want to.
Imagine your glutes, your buttocks releasing. Imagine your pelvic floor releasing. And breathe. Same thing on the other side. Place your right foot down, pop your left ankle bone on the right thigh bone. And if you want to, it might be too much to add that rock, but if you want to, you can gently add a rock. If we want to improve anything, it's not really going to be random. We can't just do the random odd sphincter exercise every 3 days or every 2 weeks. We do need consistency. If there's something that you want to rehab, it needs consistency because we need to change patterns. Okay, lower this foot down. And sitting as you are, I know it might feel a little bit ungainly, but that's fine. I want you to glance down at your pelvis and see where your pubic bone is. And maybe you can see where your sitting bones are, or at least imagine where your sitting bones are. You could spare one hand, if you can balance, and just touch your pubic bone. Touch one sitting bone. You feel it's sort of outwards on a diagonal. Touch the other sitting bone. So we've got a triangle there. So just stay there for a moment. And I want you to see this triangle. So you have a bony triangle. Pubic bone, sit bone, and you have triangular muscles that are there. And these triangular muscles are really super important for your bladder and for your vagina and for your uterus. So you can see that they're an extra support for vagina. So vaginal opening is here, your uterus is above, and then your bladder is above. So it's like extra reinforcement for the organs there at the front. And we're going to see if we can exercise these muscles. They're quite aloof to start with. So I want to remind you or encourage you that your pelvic floor muscles, you can't always feel them. You will feel them more as time goes on and as you have more of a relationship with them and you can understand them. It's not like doing biceps or press-ups where you burn after 8 reps. You could probably do 100 reps and you still wouldn't burn. So I just want to encourage you that you might not feel that you're doing anything today, but you will be doing something. You're taking your first step on the journey to pelvic health. So if you do have Franklin balls, they are going to go underneath your bottom. If you do have a TheraBand or an ankle weight, have it handy because you might want to use it in a minute. Now, if you don't have any balls, you could just use a rolled up towel or a rolled up blanket. Or maybe you don't have Franklin balls, but you have another type of massage ball. So we're going to have the equipment right down underneath our sit bones, and then we hug our knees into our chest. Our lower back is curved, it's decompressed, it's relaxed, our belly is relaxed. And I want you to remind yourself of that triangle. It's actually now a little bit wider, this triangle, because we're in hip flexion. Take your left hand onto your left knee and take your right hand round to your right sitting bone. And we're going to open our right knee to the side, and actually the sit bone will come a bit wider, and then close the knee and the sit bone will come in. So we open the knee out to the side, and then we close the knee. We open our leg, our thigh, our knee, and then we close. Now, because we're trying to train muscles that perhaps ordinarily we don't think about, I want you to have a sense of that triangle closing, contracting, closing as you close the leg, and then releasing as you open the leg. So it's contracting to pull on the sit bone to close the leg, and then it's releasing as you open the leg. Now, if this is the first time you've done this exercise, I would probably suggest doing it without any extra equipment. If you've done this with me before, you could use a band. So you could use your TheraBand. You could wrap it around your inner thigh. and use a little bit of resistance, which is really nice for your adductors, your inner thighs, and your pelvic floor. Can we go for 5 more? You could also use an ankle weight. You could pop an ankle weight on if you didn't have a TheraBand. And this is part of the 4-week Ultimate Pelvic Floor program. We start to add a little bit more resistance over time. Now we're sticking with the same leg. Can we straighten the leg? It may not fully straighten, and that is fine. But we'll do the same exercise. Now, this is a bit more of a load on the pelvic floor. It's a longer lever and it's a heavier load. So it means that it's going to be working it more. The exercise is important, but it's more your visual imagery. Your visual imagery. So can you imagine that triangular set of muscles expanding and then contracting, lengthening and then shortening? Can you see a triangle? Another thing that you could do here is contract your urethral sphincter, because it's actually embedded in this set of triangular muscles. So as you close the leg, you could think of contracting the muscles that stop the flow of urine, and then fully release them as you open the leg. It's looking lovely. Can we do 3 more? So contract it all as you close, and then release, 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 release. And Lisa or anyone else that feels that they really need to release, you could even just apply a bit of pressure on that inner thigh just to stretch it a little bit more. Beautiful. When you've finished off your last one, get rid of all the equipment. And I know you won't want to, but you're going to come up to standing, because I just want you to stand and observe if there is any subtle or remarkable difference in how you feel physically. So if you stand on your 2 feet, body scan, and just notice, is there anything that's jumping out at me? Do I feel any different in my right shoulder, my right hip joint, my right knee, my right foot? Is there any difference? And then shift your body weight over onto your right foot and just balance. Lift the left foot off the floor and balance on your right foot, and notice alignment, stability, balance. Compared to the other side, notice alignment, stability, balance. And you could maybe just try that again, 1 more to each side. And maybe you don't feel any difference, but sometimes it can be quite shocking how actually, when you've fired up your pelvic floor more on one side, it has such a difference and knock-on effect into your alignment through the knee, through the hip, through the foot. Did anybody feel that at all? Yeah, definitely some big thumbs up from Philippa. Okay. So you can then see how probably your feet, the alignment of your feet are going to affect the pelvic floor, the alignment of the hips, and absolutely how your pelvic floor affects everything below and everything above. Should we do the other side? So come and lie down on your back. And if you're using your massage or Franklin balls, they can go underneath your sitting bone or your rolled up towel. It felt, yeah, it's amazing. I felt it's amazing. And we do that a lot within the Franklin method, just taking the time to notice, be curious. Is there a difference? No difference today. Or sometimes it's like, gosh, there's a huge difference. And that can really set and establish a new trajectory for your body. It's like, oh gosh, yeah, I feel totally released. Or I feel much more stable. And it now has this new felt experience. Especially if you've been in chronic pain and you've just been experiencing the same thing day after day after day, it's really powerful to set a new trajectory. Okay, other side. Right hand on right knee, left hand on the left sit bone, and then you open the left knee out to the side and you draw it back in. So it's a very simple movement, but you can make it more exciting by really focusing on what you're doing.
If anybody wants that visual image, you can look up at the urogenital triangle. You could even imagine vaginal opening will get wider, so will the urethral opening, and then it all gets narrower. If anybody knows that they need to strengthen the muscles around the vagina, your vaginal canal is muscular. Grab this one. It's a muscular canal. It's like an extension of the sphincter. So the sphincter is down here at the bottom, but all of this is muscular, and it can open and it can close. So why don't you imagine the vaginal canal opening as you open the leg, and then it's going to close as you close the leg. Open as you open the leg, close as you close the leg. And then we'll do about 10 with a straight leg. If this is the first time you've done this, that is enough imagery. If you've done this many times, or even if you want to revisit this video in the future, if you have a rectocele prolapse, or you've had one, it's the back wall here that's weaker. That's what I have. Or if you have an anterior wall prolapse or cystocele where the bladder drops down, it's the front. So you could even imagine, as you're closing the vaginal opening and the canal, just imagine more connection going into the back wall or into the front wall. When we imagine something happening, when we imagine our body moving, there is a trickle-down effect through the nervous system. You can build strength. There's studies to show that you can build strength without moving, just with imagery. And certainly imagery and movement, you absolutely will build strength. So even if you're not quite sure, just image the back wall or the front wall or the whole of the vagina getting stronger, contracting. So around 10-ish. And then I'd like to do the same thing with both legs together. So that would be 2 bent legs. You've got your knees hugged in towards you. Louise, I saw that you were doing that with your foot on the floor. You can do it with your foot on the floor if it's uncomfortable with your legs in the air. But you're now going to open both knees out to the sides. This is lovely because you can imagine the triangle widening on both sides, and then contract the triangle to bring your legs back in. Sometimes the imagery of 2 magnets really works for me. A magnet on each sit bone. They're coming in, and then they demagnetize, and then they come in. Yeah, well done. Do around 10 with bent legs, and then around 10 with straight legs. So anyone that feels that they need to support their bladder, this is a wonderful sequence to do. Bladder continence-wise, and then also pelvic organ prolapse-wise, to support bladder, to support uterus, and to support vagina. And on the 4-week course, once you've worked through the 20 videos, I give you 5 exercises for bladder continence, 5 classes rather, for bladder continence, 5 for rectal continence, 5 for pelvic organ prolapse, 5 for releasing tension, 5 for stress release. I've got you covered. So do 10 with your straight legs. Well done. Yeah, wonderful. So over time, you could add more resistance, either by having bands around your thighs or ankle weights. When you've finished, I want to invite you to keep your legs open. So maybe that's straight legs open. Maybe you prefer bent legs open. Maybe you prefer feet on the floor and knees just flopped out to the side. So just decide how you would like to gently rest and release your inner thighs and your pelvic floor. And we'll just take maybe 10 slow breaths. And be intuitive with this. You have an option to maybe rub your inner thighs. You could even just gently pull out on your inner thighs, pull on the skin a little bit. So when you pull on the skin, you pull on the fascia, not only of the inner thighs, but of the pelvic floor. You could even take your fingertips more up towards your groin and gently pull out. about 10 deep breaths. So of course we breathe into our lungs and our diaphragm moves down. Our diaphragm is a really key muscle when we're thinking of pelvic floor. It kind of acts as an antagonist with the pelvic floor. So breathe deeply and imagine that you're breathing in as deeply as your pelvic floor. Your pelvic floor expands a bit as you breathe in and then it recedes back a bit as you breathe out. Breathing properly is a pelvic floor exercise and one that you do 20,000 times a day. You don't just have to remember to do kegals, you do an exercise 20,000 times a day. Okay, close your legs, lower your feet. Now, I was debating whether to put this sequence in, but I've decided to put it in. I was debating because I know some of you have pelvic organ prolapse symptoms at the moment. If that is you, I would like you not to do this. I don't want you to do this sequence. I'm going to give you something else to do. If you have knee issues, don't do this sequence. We're going to come into some squats. Make your way up to standing. If you are not doing this because of your knees or because of your pelvic floor, could you please revisit the cat-cow sequence we did on our hands and knees and the circles? So can I leave you to do 10 cat-cows and then 10 circles, really sensing your pelvic floor? So we are going to do a little squat sequence. You're very welcome to pick up weights if you wish. If you know that that is suitable for your pelvic floor, perhaps if you've been working with me before and you want to hold on to hand weights or a kettlebell, you can. Don't feel any pressure to do that because that's something that can come in a few weeks' time. Okay, now squatting is something we do all the time. Every time you sit down, you do a squat to sit down. And squatting is a really good exercise for your pelvic floor because as you squat, your sitting bones get wider. That means your pelvic floor stretches, but under load because you've got the weight, you've got gravity coming down, you've got the weight of the upper body. So we're going to take our feet a little wider than hip width apart and come into a squat. So you flex at the hips, you bend at the knees, and then you return. Just that, a little flexion. And then we return. And you can imagine your sitting bones going wide and then coming in. Your pelvic floor going wide and then coming in. Pelvic floor going wide and coming in. Keep going, just that to start with. So if you're not doing this, you're coming into the cat-cow on your hands and knees or tailbone circles. So as you go down, your pelvic organs will be dropping down. It's not a bad thing. They are designed to do that. And they're dropping down into this strong pelvic floor, and then they're being rebounded up, a bit like a trampoline, down and then up, and then down and then up. So of course, if you haven't got enough integrity under here in these pelvic floor muscles and the fascia and the ligaments, the weight of the pelvic organs is just going to be too much. So we need to get more integrity in the pelvic floor so it can support all of your pelvic organs. You're very welcome to continue with this. If you want a little bit more of a challenge, let's take our arms in front of us and we're going to go down and come up. Can you make sure you've got no equipment around you so we're not going to have any accidents? Sit bones wide, sit bone forward, sit bone wide, sit bone forward, sit bone wide, sit bone forward. Keep going. All of these muscles are now being dynamically trained. And I don't want you to do a perfect single knee lift every time. Do a single knee lift, take the leg a bit higher, take it a bit lower, take it across, take it to the side. Allow your pelvic floor to experience variety and to be, what's the word? That it's unpredictable, a little bit unpredictable. Because it's unpredictable if you suddenly laugh, isn't it? Or if you're putting the bins out and you twist. Our movements are not always predictable. If you want an extra challenge, do not feel any pressure. Come up to the side, come up and down. Up to the side, up. And the more you can move this sit bone, Can you imagine the more pelvic floor exercise you're going to get? And do one where you take the leg a bit forward. And maybe a bit further forward. And a little bit less forward. Or perhaps a little tiny bit wider. So this is what your pelvic floor needs. It needs dynamic training. It needs to be loaded. It needs to be stretched, contracted, and there's so many different layers of it. We're going to go for 2 more to each side. Well done. A good one for cardio as well, isn't it? Beautiful. Settle in the centre. Hands into fists. And we're going to tap our bottoms. There's going to be a prize for the most wobbly bottom. Wonderful. Come and sit down either on your chair, your stool, or on your bottom. Grab a bit of water, a drink, or a cup of tea if you need. And then bring your fingertips to the base of your jaw. In fact, let's bring thumbs. Bring your thumbs, all fingertips, to the base of your jaw and just trace the base of your jaw. It's the same shape as your pubic bone and your 2 sit bones. It's the same shape. Same shape as this. This would be your jaw. That's the jaw angle here. Okay, and then you're going to bring your thumbs to just underneath the jaw here and do a little gentle massage. Now, on the pelvic floor course, we do this exercise and we do a pelvic floor massage at the same time. So you would need some kind of massage ball. But perhaps you can imagine that there is a release happening in your pelvic floor as you are releasing your jaw. Very often, if we have a tight jaw, we have a tight pelvis or pelvic floor, and vice versa. Okay, lovely. And then just release, bring your hands down. Observe how your jaw feels. And can you slowly make your way down onto your back? And bring your fingertips. I know we've been here for an hour and a quarter, so if you had eaten before, it's likely the food would have gone down. But just be a bit mindful if you have got food in your stomach. You're going to bring your fingertips to, it's called the xiphoid process. So this part of your ribs here is called the rib angle. And the top, there's a little bone there called the xiphoid process. So just bring your fingertips, I guess, to the top of that rib angle. And just explore for a moment your ribs. Explore that rib angle. Can you allow your fingers to sink under the rib angle? Do it lying down, actually. It is easier because your abs are working if you're standing or sitting. Your abs can relax when you're lying down. So just explore. So this is your ribs. And it will also be your diaphragm. If the diaphragm is tight and not functioning optimally, it's likely that the pelvic floor could also be tight and certainly not functioning optimally. So you could do all the pelvic floor training, but actually, unless you look at the diaphragm, you haven't got all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. Now, with your fingertips, just slide your fingertips along that rib angle. I'm starting at the xiphoid process at the top and then sliding down. Sliding down. And this is often an exercise that we do before we do the hypopressives, which is that great one for prolapse and for continence.
which we won't touch on today. Sliding your fingers just along that rib angle. And noticing what you find. Is it tighter on one side compared to the other? And then you can rest. Bring your hands back into that, would you call that a diamond shape? Down onto your pelvis. So thumbs touching, fingertips touching, and bring your hands down. Maybe fingertips down towards pubic bone. Like we started with, close your eyes. If there's anything you need to do to become more comfortable, you could pop your blanket on you, or you could pop your blanket under your head or under your knees. Just make sure you're comfortable enough to rest. And observe how you feel after an hour of movement and embodiment and being nowhere else but just here with your body and with your pelvis. And just be open to listening to your body. It might be that it has nothing to say today, but it might do tomorrow or the next day. So like you are with a dear friend that you know that you could always pick up the phone to. Be the same for your body. Notice your breath. Allow your breath to be full and deep. And with each breath in, it's a new moment. It's another now. Now. It's another moment. I'm here. I am here. It's a fresh start with each moment. The past is behind us, and there's a new moment, a new moment, a new moment. And also with each inhale, we breathe in life and oxygen and energy into our lungs, and it's transported via our bloodstream to every cell in our body. And as an imagery exercise, I want you to imagine that this newness and this healing and this regeneration is being welcomed, absorbed, received by your pelvic floor, or by your pelvis, or maybe it's the bladder or your uterus, or where the uterus was. You can just make this your own, but invite a deep breath in. Invite this healing energy in, this life force in, and imagine it being received by your pelvis, received by your bladder, by your uterus, or perhaps where the uterus was, received by your rectum, by all of the pelvic muscles, by the ligaments, by the bones and the joints. We're going to rest here for 2 or 3 minutes. I have a reading that I wanted to share with you. So you're very welcome to keep your eyes closed. I thought this was lovely. It's by Nikki Banas, and it's called With Every Step. You can love yourself exactly as you are now, while also wanting to grow and become more. You can be proud of how far you've come, while also wanting to push yourself even further. You don't have to pick just one or the other. Beautiful friend, you can love yourself every single step of the way. You've got to celebrate both your big and little wins, because it really is about your journey.
It's about your journey of becoming. Sometimes we forget that every step of the way is equally important, whether it's the first or last. Without one of them, the journey would be incomplete. So love yourself through it all. Love yourself every single step of the way. And perhaps this is just another important step in your journey, learning to love yourself, to prioritize yourself, to get to know yourself. Put yourself at the top of the list. Physically, emotionally, energetically. Changing your trajectory. And as you're resting here, just see if there is any message that comes up from your body, or from your being, or from your soul. And that message might be a clear sentence, it might be a colour, it might be an image. It doesn't need to make sense. And just ponder on the question, what does it mean to you to have core confidence? What does it mean? What does it look like? And maybe that could be, what does it mean to have that physical core confidence, but maybe it's more than that. What is your core confidence? How can we bring that to the surface? Let's gently start to wriggle fingers and wriggle toes and wriggle your face and perhaps come into a little bit of a stretch. And then when you're ready, just take your time and you're going to slowly come up to sitting. And if you have anything that you would like to share in the chat box, that is always lovely, because of course if we were in person there would be dialogue, and it's lovely for me also to have feedback, but I think it's nice for you to share too. So maybe there was an insight that came up, maybe you were intrigued by something, maybe you were surprised about something, maybe something made sense finally. That'd be lovely to hear from you. And while you are doing that, I want to share a little bit about the new Ultimate Pelvic Floor plan, and I think I might show you it in a moment as well, perhaps once you've all typed in the chat box. So it's a new incarnation of this programme. So in the past I've just done it live, and now it's all pre-recorded and it's more exercise focused. So you have 5 classes to do a week for 4 weeks. That's 20 sessions to do. And those sessions, perhaps if I read them out, you've got a diaphragm session, a urethral sphincter session, an inner thigh session, anal sphincter, glutes, 3 hyperpressive sessions, a jaw and foot session, digestive health and spinal posture session, rib and thoracic mobility session. So I really looked at it and I thought, what do we need to have optimal pelvic health? We need to look at all of these things. So I feel like it's a really thorough and really comprehensive program. I put it together as a 4-week program, and then I've taken those videos and I've kind of put them into sequences: rectal health, bladder health, pelvic organ prolapse, releasing tension, stress, release, so that if you know, do you know what, it is actually my bladder continence I need to focus on, you just can stick with those videos. We also have a lot of bonus videos. We have a facial reflexology class, a nutrition talk about perimenopause and menopause, a fix your period talk with Nicole Jardin. So there's lots of lovely bonuses. I'll send you the sales page so you can have a little look through it. I have also got some extra important tips, ways in which you can support your pelvic health. I'm going to read those through you in a moment. So before I do, I just want to share my screen. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. And then I'll come back and read. So I have a membership site, and I know many of you are members, and it's called Aligned. So this is the membership site. And it has 300 plus workouts on it. Now, at the very top of the Aligned membership site, and this isn't accessible for Aligned members unless you enroll for the Ultimate Pelvic Floor Plan, but this is where you access the plan. So we have week 1, if I click on it, you have got 5 videos, urogenital triangle, urethral sphincter, and you can see the time of them, 26 minutes, 17 minutes, 17, 20, so it's very doable. I realise that sometimes to find an hour to do a recorded class can be quite tricky, and I wanted this to be doable. You've got week 2, week 3, week 4, and then there's only 2 in there at the moment, but there's going to be 3 maintenance classes in here. One, we focus on the root chakra, that's a little bit longer, and the next one will focus on the sacral chakra. And then you also have, this is what I'm really, really pleased with. You've got bladder control, rectal control, pelvic floor stretch and release, breathing and stress release, prolapse support, and then all the bonuses. Let me just go on to bladder control. For the bladder control, you've got 5 videos here. So they're the videos from the 4-week course, but so you don't have to go searching. You can think, oh, yeah, that's what I need to focus on. The hyperpressives, the sphincters, the urogenital, the inner thighs, etc. So that is the plan, and that's where you'll find it. And I just wanted it to be really, really simple, really straightforward, really comprehensive. You also get a course PDF, which I have been working very hard on, which takes you through the course again. But also, I just wanted to read these out to you as well. So other important ways in which you can support your pelvic health. Stay hydrated. Use a squatty potty. So if you have a squatty potty, great. If you don't, get a little stool, put it next to your toilet. So when you have a wee or when you have a poop, you must have your knees above your hips so that your sit bones widen and your rectum stretches out. So that is one of my top tips. Another top tip, try to fully empty your bladder when you urinate. I know that's obvious, but you need to lean forward a little bit, which is why the squatty potty is also great, so that you can fully empty your bladder. Avoid constipation. It's really key. I was chronically constipated for years and I didn't realise what a pressure it was putting on my pelvic floor. So eat plenty of fibre. You could add psyllium husk. I don't know if you've come across psyllium husk, but you could add that to smoothies. And you could also try drinking senna tea. That really helps with your flow. But it's absolutely vital that you're not constipated. Look after your gut microbiome. We talk more about this. Chew your food to liquid. I know, it's really hard. Victoria, I've just realised which Victoria you are. We were at primary school together, weren't we? That's so hysterical. Yeah, chew your food to liquid. Yeah, don't just swallow your food. And even smoothies, try to chew your smoothies and your soup, because you produce more digestive enzymes in your mouth when you chew. Sit down while you eat and allow your food to digest afterwards. So no, like in the car, well, I know you're sitting in the car, but just try to make it a ritual that you're sitting down and eating. Maybe look into a probiotic. Breathing. Breathe fully. Be mindful of your posture. And then finally, move your body daily. And of course we know this, but actually aim for a 20-minute walk every day. Walking is amazing for your pelvic floor. Walking uphill is great for your pelvic floor. and try an ultimate pelvic floor class every day if you did the program. So they are my tips. I also have a couple more things before you go. So when you're bleeding, I can never say that word. When you're bleeding, your uterus can be twice as heavy as when you're not. So be mindful of that. So you might want to leave squats out on those days. You might not want to lift heavy weights on those days. If you have prolapse symptoms, avoid doing deep squats at the time and avoid lifting heavy weights. And I'm here for any questions. So I have got an offer of £100 off until 2 weeks today, I think it is. So 2 weeks today, we have a live introductory kind of welcome for everyone that's signed up for the new Ultimate Pelvic Floor Plan. We're going to do a live 75-minute class. And then my hope is that you'll crack on and you'll work through the 4 weeks. And then we can stay in contact in the Facebook group. We can stay in contact via email. You can let me know how you're getting on. And then perhaps we'll do another live class at the end and you can ask me any questions. I want this to be a resource that you can keep forever. So it's a one-time purchase, but then it's yours forever. It's an evergreen, which I'm so pleased about. Yeah. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to read through some of your comments. Amazing. Have learned a lot. Thank you. I don't think I have relaxed my pelvic floor before. I think I spend all my time trying to keep it tight. Thank you for sharing this beautiful workshop. Thank you, Rachel. Love your wonderful work. It makes great sense. It was a good explanation of each muscle and we use and what they do. Feel more mobile around my hip during the class and when we had to balance on one leg. Thank you for your beautiful sessions. I'm glad to meet you also. I feel much more connected to my pelvic floor now, noticing a slight imbalance between right and left side of pelvic floor. It's really interesting. Thank you so much. It was a brilliant workshop. Thank you so much for the workshop. It's all new language to me, but I relaxed into it. Oh, well done, Seraphine. It's so nice to see you. Rachel, great session. Thank you. Thank you. Learned a lot tonight. Thank you so much. My pelvic floor feels relaxed for the first time in years. Even my neck and shoulders feel amazing. Thank you. Very informative. Thank you for your practical support. That was amazing. I felt like I was in great hands and totally safe. That makes me so happy. Very useful. It was amazing. Thank you for useful classes in the last one. Since your last Ultimate Pelvic Floor Plan, I have stopped being constipated, so that's a good start. Oh, well done. I need to do more. Oops, enough said about that for now. I know it's consistency. We do need that consistency. So yes, £100 off. It's £297. And you can pay £297 or you can pay over 3 months. What I will do, I'll send the recording out of this class and then I'll send you the sales page and you can have a look. And if you feel like that would be a nice support, it would be amazing to have you. And then I'll be increasing the price by at least 100 and possibly more because there's so much in there. Because it's the first time I'm running it, I wanted to give you an introductory offer. I'm interested to hear that the jaw means tight pelvic floor, tight jaw, tight pelvic floor. Thank you so much. My shoulder has completely released and it has been stiff all day. Never think of doing pelvic floor work for shoulders. So excited for the course, feel positive and uplifted. One thing about that, you've heard me say if you do my aligned classes, but if you can actually connect your core more, and that doesn't mean gripping the core, but if you can feel more supported by your skeleton and be naturally more supported by your core, your periphery naturally releases. So your jaw will release, your neck and shoulders will release because there's no need for them to hold on because you've got enough strength from this. It makes sense, doesn't it? Totally makes sense. So if you have that integrity in your skeleton and in all of your postural muscles, all of the peripheral muscles can just be there to move you. So you get this lovely sense of release. Shall we finish? Let's jump up to standing. Oh, thank you, Anne. It's lovely to see you. Thanks, Selena. So standing, let's finish all together. Have a little bit of a shake. Say a great big thank you to self for carving out 90 minutes. I know it's not always easy, but hopefully 15 minutes, 17 minutes will be far easier. And we will stand with the feet just hip width apart. Let's take a beautiful deep breath in, reach up and look up. And then as you breathe out, bring your hands all the way down to your heart. Great big, well done, and thank you to yourself. And last one, breathing in and breathing out. Thank you all so much for joining live. And thank you to everyone that's watching the recording. I'll send you all the info on the course, and I will hopefully see you in class very soon. Have a lovely rest of your day or evening. And please feel free to send me an email, or you can type in the Facebook group if you have any questions at all. Lots of love. Thank you. Bye.